Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RGVSports.com podcast. I'm your host. My name is John LaFollette, and I cover high school sports for the Monitor in McAllen, Texas, and for RGVSports.com for the world at large. If you're listening to this, you already know what it is. It's the RGV Week 9 podcast. We're getting ready for 6A teams this time. Joining me, as always, he puts the MAC and MAC High or McAllen Memorial this week, and he's also a man who never counts his money when he's sitting at the table. Greg Luca. How you doing?
You got to know when to hold them and you got to know when to fold them, John.
Right. And I mean, who's going to hold them and fold them in McAllen Memorial versus MAC High this week?
We'll certainly get to that later in the show.
We'll certainly get that later in the show, Bob. Meanwhile, no, seriously though, we will get to that. We got plenty to talk about in this show. We were going to lead off with some news regarding McAllen Row, but some news happened that we talked about on yesterday's show, on the 5A show, regarding the eligibility of a couple players trying to play for Valley View and Edinburgh Valley. Mario Aguirre broke this story for us on RGVSports.com. And for the Monitor earlier today. He cannot be here right now, but nonetheless, we're going to relay this news for those who don't know or might need a refresher. So, George Olivares transfers from PHA North to Edinburgh Valley. There were some questions as to whether or not he'd be eligible to play because you can't transfer to school simply for athletic reasons. He was voted unanimously 5-0 by coaches in 31-5, and he could play. He is eligible to play for Edinburgh Valley. Still no status, still no news as to whether or not he will ever play, what position he will play, or if he's just going to, ride the bus to games with this team. We don't know, but he can dress up in a Bella Sabercat uniform on Thursday or Fridays or Saturdays now. So, but we should also mention that Adam Solis, former backup quarterback / wide receiver for Michigan Veterans, left the school for what was deemed personal reasons to go to Valley View, and he was denied the eligibility there, so he will not be able to play for the Tigers at least this season. And again, like I said, with Olivares, there were some questions and speculation whether or not he would play at all, even if he was approved. But what are just your thoughts on this? And again, before I let Greg speak here, it should be noted that Mario did break the story on this. And if you want to read more about it, it's in today's issue of the Monitor. It's on RGVSports.com right now. You can follow him on Twitter for more of this, at Mario_Aguirre. And I'll give it to you, Greg. What do you take away from all this?
Well, I mean, my first reaction with Olivares is that it's a little bit sketchy because we talked about the reasons that it seems like it's a transfer for athletic reasons, just based on the timing of losing his job at PSJA North, and then suddenly that's the week that, for other reasons, he has to transfer.
Right.
But clearly there's something that people saw in that executive committee meeting that they said that this kid deserves to have this opportunity. So not really what was said in there. I can't tell them that they're wrong either.
Right.
So.
And Coach George Pena, PSA North head coach for football, he said that he would sign off on any paperwork that Bella wanted him to sign off on. He said, he's not going to get in the way of a kid who wants to play football elsewhere. So that's all that I could. At least when the story first broke, I reached out to Pena. I had the chance to talk to him. I never could get a hold of Olivares, so I never got the side of his story on things. So I can't really speak as to what was going through on his side. All I know is the PHA North side because that's the only side I've been able to get.
Right.
So
that could just be nice guy Pena too. It doesn't necessarily mean that he thinks it wasn't for that reason or anything like that.
Right. So,
but in terms of the football impact, we'll see. I think that obviously a kid that athletic, you could just throw him in on special teams right away, and he could have a big impact for you there. Mm-hmm. If that's the way you want to do it, and then as the season progresses, obviously there's a couple games left for them, but enough time to maybe get him into some defensive packages. I doubt you see him playing any quarterback. That probably takes a lot of work, and Fabian Pedraza there has done a good enough job of holding that position for them. So defensive back perhaps, kick returner, punt returner, even like special teams coverage.
He's an athlete. I mean, he certainly is an athlete. That's one thing that Coach Pena has said about his system. He takes his best athletes and puts them in a position to succeed, and he did that for PSA North. For whatever reason, the relationship deteriorated there, and he was benched for Darren Fuentes. But, nonetheless, we should say props to these gentlemen and good luck to them in whatever they wish to do, be it football or otherwise. So
sure.
It seems like, at least for Olivares, he gets what he wants. As for Solis, well, wish him the best of luck in whatever endeavors he has going forward, be it athletically or academically. So
he's he's only a sophomore or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway.
Yeah, he's an underclassman as well, and Olivares is a senior. So, but anyways, now we've touched on that. We were going to lead the show with this news. This broke yesterday. We should address it here on the show again. McAllen Row seems like they've got a lame-duck coach now for the rest of the way. I'll let you elaborate a bit more on that.
Yeah, Coach Paul Reyes tendered his resignation. It seems like it was a move he was forced into. He said it certainly wasn't his call. And to be honest with you, at the end of last season, I found myself trying to figure out when the McAllen ISD board meetings were and if something like this would come up or be discussed, just independently of him having to announce it on his own terms, because I really don't know that he's kind of met the expectations for what typically happens at Rowe. He's been to the playoffs twice. They lost in the first round both times. And on his career now, he's 25-34. They run this sort of spread offense, and that's done well and been pretty productive, and I think that's the side that he coaches more. But for whatever reason, they haven't been able to, at least in the 2 years that I've been here, get much of anything out of their defense, and it's led to some lackluster results. Now, to me, the weird thing about this is the timing, because they're 1-3 in district, and they can still make the playoffs if they beat Mission High and La Jolla High the last 2 games. Mm-hmm. So, really not a good time to put out something like this and cause a distraction for your players and get them thinking about something else other than this season. And it makes the statement that they're not happy with the way the team is heading and they're not pleased with the team's performance, or else they wouldn't make a change like this.
Right.
So I don't know if that's what you want to tell your kids when it's really in the playoff chase. I don't know how this got out or when they had originally made the decision. I assume if he had beaten McAllen High or if he had beaten Palmview, then perhaps this wouldn't have happened. But, I mean, it's just impossible to say. So, again, for Rowe, 1-3, they could still make the playoffs, but it's hard
it's hard to light a fire under your team when they know that you're out the door at the end of the season anyways.
Right.
You talked to Coach Reyes, and if you want to read more about this, it's on RGVSports.com. It's been in the monitor. Go check it out. But there's an interesting quote here that Reyes said, and he was like, obviously, they tried to keep this, I'm just paraphrasing here, it sounds like, that McAllen ISD tried to keep this in-house, but like you said, news got out. So, do we know how the news somehow got out?
I really don't know where the leak came from or who ended up spilling the beans on this one, so to speak. I really couldn't tell you. It's just unfortunate for them. I mean, I was caught completely off guard just because it just seems like something that if maybe after this week if they lost, but there's really not even a good reason to announce it anytime before the end of the year. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's not like the NFL where you need to be getting in line to hire the next guy or whatever. There's no cause for, you don't need to pick up a couple weeks here. Just wait for the end of the season. Nobody has to worry about it anymore, and they don't have to see him in practice and things like that.
Right. And again, I do question the timing. I do question maybe if there's a motive here to kind of leak the news out. I mean, I'm curious as to that. Maybe it's McAllen Memorial booster trying to leak the news. No, I'm speculating there and joking on that one. But real quick, I should note that this is day 2 of sinus gate for me. So if I sound a little stuffy, you hear the occasional sniffle or cough or sneeze, I have a bit of a head cold.
I listened to yesterday's show. I didn't notice much, so I think you're doing it right.
I've got my Halls triple-coated cough drops right here. I'm drinking plenty of fluids.
Sponsored by Halls.
Yeah, this hashtag no sponsorship. This episode is brought to you by Halls.
Oh, y'all made this joke yesterday, didn't you?
No, I don't know. No, it was Pepto-Bismol yesterday.
Oh, okay, good. I'm clean.
Yep, we're all good.
Thanks.
So, so just thanks for bearing with me if you hear anything on that regards on my end. But let's talk about other things aside from Rowe here. You had a notebook come out today regarding 36A. Any interesting tidbits or anything along those lines from 36A for you guys?
Well, one thing that I touched on in this notebook just for fun was to talk about Eric Guerrero at McAllen Memorial. He's had an interesting role for them, just running end-around plays pretty much exclusively. He's one of their running backs, and he gets used in a 3-back set, but he's touched the ball 20 times, in the 7 games, and mostly on end-around plays where they just run the offense one way and he gets it going the other way, and he's averaged more than 15 yards a carry and scored twice. So he's an interesting piece of their offense because when obviously you have a guy like Trevor Spate's defenses are sort of overcompensating for that, and he exploits it for them. So that's pretty big. And on a more newsworthy front, or something kind of different, Mission High went with a new quarterback last week. That was Rudy Trevino. He was their JV guy last year, and he had kind of split time with William Arias this year. And now he looks like he's going to be the starter going forward because he played pretty well for them in the win over La Jolla High last week that we talked about was something that caught us off guard.
Right. Just
based on how La Jolla High had won games against Palmview and Mac High leading into that one. So he played well in that game. He's not much of a runner, but he can do a little bit on the ground. He's 210 pounds, kind of rumbles. And
rumble. What a great word. That's one of my favorite words.
Like Barrett Strada, right?
Yeah, like Barrett Strada, who we'll talk about here in a second.
And passing in that game, he completed 11 of 14 passes for 152 yards and 2 scores. So showing some good signs there now. He's had good games previously and then come out the next week and been a dud. So we got to see if he's going to consistently the rest of the year play like he deserves to be the starter and really get that offense going. Because I don't think it's too late for them to make a playoff push. It's not too late for anybody in this district right now, as long as they can put some wins together.
As far as Lincoln out of it officially, or I mean, are they still even alive?
Not officially. They're not. I would say that at 0-3, they're in a pretty deep hole, but they are not officially out of it yet.
Because I was looking at standings for 31-6A, and even I think the only team who's out of it at this point is PSA Memorial.
Right.
But even Edinburgh High, 1-3, they're still right there in the thick of things. 1-2. I have to go back and double check.
Yeah, Mission's only 1-2, so like I'm saying, they can if they can really get solid play out of him, they can make a run at this thing. Yeah.
Looking at real quick, since we're going to spend so much time on this, we're going to talk about McAllen Memorial, Mac High. But real quick, looking at what else is going on in your district in terms of game-wise. Rowe plays Mission, first game where the news has been announced regarding Coach Reyes there for Rowe. How do you see this one playing out? Give us a score.
Not only are they sort of in a little bit of fluctuation because of that news, but then they're going to play a Thursday game.
Right.
Less time to process it.
That's Thursday at Tom Landry Stadium.
So that hurts their chances, and on top of that, I think Mission has shown that between their pass rush and some of the guys they have in the secondary that they can handle a passing team. They really gave La Jolla High's passing game some fits last week. So I gotta feel like Mission's the team to beat in this one. I like their chances of coming out with the win here, just because, like we said, Trevino maybe got the offense going a little bit, and I think they have the players to shut down Rowe's passing game.
La Jolla High seems like they're on the bye. Real quick, you wrote a feature about La Jolla High. Tell us a bit about that. That's in the Modern Day and RGVSports.com as well. What did you write about La Jolla?
Well, the thing with these kids is one of my original ideas going over there was to just talk about just in more general terms of the season they've had, because it's been hard to figure out. We talked about how they lost 3 games by 40 points or more. And then we talked about how they came back and beat Palmview and Mac High. And then came back and lost to Mission.
Right.
Just kind of not anything that we would have expected to follow each other. None of that connects. So it's like, why is this happening or what's going on? And sort of what they got at was that they've been inconsistent because the lineup's been inconsistent because they've had so many injuries.
Okay.
We've talked about on here previously that Justin Leanos, their running back who was the leader last year and the leader to this point this year, is out for the rest of the season with a torn ACL. So I talked to the kid who stepped up and filled in for him, and that's Ramos, Brandon Ramos, I believe was his name. I'm blanking on it now. Yeah, Brandon Ramos. And he is also dealing with an AC joint in his shoulder, and he's a little banged up. He's got a knee issue too, so this kid is kind of just toughing it out for them and making something happen where they need a guy back there to do that now. And I think that's kind of the story of this team, is that different guys have gone down and different guys have had to step up. On defense, which I didn't get a chance to talk about in the story, they've relied on their leaders, Ray Hernandez at linebacker and Gabriel Rios in the secondary, to sort of get these new people who aren't used to being in there knowing where they're going and what's going on.
Right.
And at quarterback, they've leaned on Urban Garcia, who has sort of come in because John Cadena's been injured, who was their previous starter, and sort of just taken over the job by virtue of playing well. He's only a sophomore, but he's like 6'3", 6'4", so he can see over the defense and he can make some decent plays that I've seen so far. His accuracy hasn't been great just in terms of completion percentage, but has had some big gains and has really shown them some promise given that he's only a sophomore. So those are kind of the things that I touched on there, and I think this is an interesting team to watch because it seems like week to week I have no idea what they're going to do.
Well, that seems to be like the case for the rest of this district if you're not named McAllen Memorial.
Yeah.
Be sure to check that story out if that's what suits your fancy, or if you're just a fan of good stories in general.
No, just check it out just cuz.
Yeah, just check it out just cuz.
Don't even evaluate, just do it.
We got another matchup to La Jolla School as far as Lincoln at Palmview. Seems like Palmview's going to get this one. I would favor them, right?
Yeah, I just think Palmview's running game is good enough, and whereas Lincoln's offense is not strong enough to keep up with that. That's essentially all that we need to say about that one.
All right, cool. That brings us to the big game. The big game for you this week. At the beginning of the season, this was the matchup. I mean, it's always the matchup in this district because of the history with these teams. But this year, there was more fuel to the fire because with the arrival of Josh McGowan, you never really know. I mean, we thought that Mac High was going to be just as strong as maybe just one notch below Memorial, but Memorial was going to be the top dog, and then Mac High was going to be just a step behind him. Hasn't really turned out that way. Memorial's been who we thought they'd be, but Mac High has really kind of stumbled along this season. But still, if they get this win, they could they could be the only Valley team that Memorial loses to the rest of the way. So, what do you see in this game? What are some angles? I mean, obviously, aside from Trevor Spates and Josh McGowan, well, I guess that's probably the biggest thing that matters here. So let's start with that one then. What do you see coming up from these two running backs?
Well, I think obviously they're both really good. You know what I mean?
A little bit, yeah. There's breaking news.
Spates is a little bit of a more dynamic runner, I guess I would say. And I think he can do more things than McGowan can, just in terms of being able to beat you with his power, being able to beat you with his speed, being able to beat you with his moves, did different things.
Yeah,
like
it seems like he's got the vision down too.
Right.
He can see the field as it's happening.
McGowan is pretty good at that sort of thing, but does rely a lot more on his straight line speed to make things happen. He likes to find an alley and get to it, or find a way to get to the outside and just speed that way. More than I think he's making people miss with jukes and different things like that. But, and this is largely a product of the offense, McGowan has also proven to be more dynamic as a receiver. And if the roles were reversed, if Spates was on Mac High, he might have more catches than McGowan does or whatever. There's no reason to believe Spates can't do that, but he just hasn't been asked to do it that much in the system that Memorial runs.
Right.
And McGowan's also played some defense. Got a couple interceptions, including, I think,
one against Mission. It was like the game-winning interception.
Touchdown, right? And he's also been used on kickoff returns whenever teams are willing to kick to him, and he's got a couple touchdowns that way too. So he is really carrying that team in a lot of ways. I think he's been the primary source of offense for them, both yardage and points. He's provided even more of their total scoring and yardage on a percentage basis than Spates has for Memorial.
And that's one thing that the La Jolla High coach said about Mac High early after beating Mac High. Was like, it's the Josh McGowan show, and if you just kind of make him struggle enough, you really cramp up that whole offense.
Right. So we'll have to see if McAllen Memorial's defense can do that. That's always the question for them. But to this point in the season, they rank second in the district. Now, again, we talked about how it's not necessarily the strongest district, top to
Right.
bottom.
A lot of offenses struggle in this district.
But, again, seeing them rank second is better than they've been in the past, allowing 300 yards per game so far this season is pretty good for them. And I think that one thing Coach Kevin Brewer said of McAllen High when he talked about the Memorial defense was that they're just consistent. So you sort of know what you're getting with them. Maybe you're not getting flashy plays or anything outstanding necessarily game to game, but they're all just kind of pretty good in their roles. I mean, they have some good defensive linemen, got some good linebackers, got some good secondary players. It's just there's not necessarily a weakness or something you would target, I think, on that team. So do they have the tools to take away McGowan? That's going to be on the middle linebacker, Sam Hinojosa, a lot, I would bet. And he's been their top player, but I don't know that it'll be interesting to see. I don't think that he necessarily has the speed to handle McGowan, like in a one-on-one, like if he's trying to spy him or something like that. But I'll be interested to see what they use to try to defend him. It's going to come down to maybe some penetration too. Ricky Minor's a guy that I've talked about. I wrote a feature on him earlier in the year up front from McAllen Memorial, getting penetration and doing things like that. And on the flip side, McAllen High's defense trying to stop Spates is going to be hard to...
At the rate that Spates is putting up yards and touchdowns this year, asking any defense to stop him is really hard. So.
Right, and they've allowed the second most rushing yardage in district. Looking at the stats now, McAllen High has, so they have not been good in that way against anybody.
Yeah, and keep in mind that part of that is they got blown out by Permian, which
right, true.
So I'd be curious.
They played good teams.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if you take up that Permian game, which kind of sandbags that stat. I might give you a better understanding of what they can do defensively.
They'd be more in the pack, I think. If I remember correctly, Permian had about 400 yards there, so just doing the quick mental math, they would be right in the pack with everybody else under those circumstances. But, again, I think what I always talk about with them is that they're athletic, but they're young, and they just make a lot of mistakes. And Spates will punish those mistakes every time if you're not filling every hole and every gap. Because, like you talk about, vision is so good that he can cut back if he needs to, things like that. So I don't see that they find a way to stop him too often, and that's why I think that this game is pretty heavily in Memorial's favor. I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout because I think McAllen High can score. And for all that we've kind of questioned McAllen High and everything, they're alone in second in the district standings right now at 3-1. They're the only team that's 3-1 at this point. There's a 2-1, and then everybody else has multiple losses aside from Memorial.
Yeah, it seems like they've kind of righted the ship here.
So they are not, I would say, playing as well as I thought they would play, and overall as a team they're not as strong as I thought they would be, but on paper they are one loss away from being what we thought. I would have thought that they would enter this game undefeated in district, and that Memorial would be the only game that they might lose. They have had that other slip up against La Jolla, so again, they can't really redeem that in terms of making a run at the district title, although, you know what, I guess if they win this game, they would be right there, because then they'd have the tiebreaker against Memorial. But I'm just not really willing to put that on the table even. I just don't think that they can win this game. I just don't think they can stop Spates enough time. To be totally honest.
Well, if you're so in favor of Memorial here, I guess, what do you think the score is going to be?
Mac
High won this game a year ago, did they not?
No, they did not.
Memorial
won
okay.
this game a year ago. I have McAllen Memorial 46, McAllen High 24. I wrote it down this week because we do them for our little capsules, and you usually ask me, and then I just say a different number. Now I'm going to be consistent this week. It's 46-24 for Memorial. Again, like I said, McAllen High gets some points, but Memorial, I don't know how many times they're going to get stopped.
I think Memorial and Vela, I don't see them losing until the playoffs. I think both those teams are going to run the table at least in the regular season. So.
I would agree with you.
Anything else in 36A you want to talk about? Or you want to start asking me about 31-6A? How do you want to approach this?
I think that's pretty clean. That's where I'm going to be on Friday. You have the game of the week tomorrow, do you not?
I have the game of the week. It's on Thursday. We're at like minute 20. We're just now getting to the game of the week. That's how busy this week is for the 6A show. And this game of the week kind of gets buried because, you got Memorial versus Mac High, which is always a big game.
Sort of the name matchup.
That's the name matchup.
On paper as competitive or as compelling as this one is.
Right, yeah. I mean, this game a couple weeks ago, this game kind of seems just like every other game on the schedule. But, both these teams coming to this game, I should say, Wesley Coeast and PSA North, on a hot streak. PSA North, they've saved their season. They were 1-4. They lost to four straight games, albeit to top 10 teams. But that Weslaco game, they lost 56-7. It looked like they were on their way to kind of collapsing here. Right of the ship, they've won 3 straight. Those 3 games have all been since George Olivares quit the team. And since then, it's been business as usual for the Raiders. These last 3 weeks, they've been putting up 428 yards of offense and about 32 points like clockwork. It's just business as usual for them.
Right.
And as for Weslaco East, they're coming off a bye in this game. They only lost 1 game this year. That was a week 2 loss to San Benito, which doesn't look so bad now because it didn't look bad at the moment, but it doesn't even look bad now because San Benito is a really good team. They might win that district.
Yeah.
At 32-6A, and that's a really tough district. So, nonetheless, they're coming off a bye. They're undefeated in district, and I think both these teams are playoff teams. I don't think a playoff chance is at stake here. I think positioning might be.
Right.
We'll have to see how that works out, but. It'll be interesting. What do you want to know about this game? Ask me questions. What do you want to know?
Well, I mean, you know what? Just skip right to the good part. What way do you lean? Who are you taking in this one?
Weslaco East. I'm taking Weslaco East. Granted, this is Thursday, i.e. today, at PSA Stadium in Farr, so PSA North will be the home team here. But I'm favoring Weslaco East. One, like I said, they're coming off a bye. They're a little bit healthier. Coach Burgett said, his team is semi-healthy. I asked what that meant. He said, talk to me after the first drive and I'll tell you. So, right. But still, they're healthier than PSA North is at the moment right now. They're more consistent offensively and defensively. PSA North in district, their defense has played a lot better. They've allowed about 100 yards less than what they have during the previous 5 games. But I've seen too many games with PSA North where they get gashed so easily. And Weslaco East, they've pretty much by and large been the same team every week. They run the ball a ton, they score a ton, and they play okay defense. They try to get better. They allow about 316 yards a game, which isn't great, but it's not terrible. They're about the middle, but still 316. That's better than what PSA North is averaging the last couple of weeks. So I go with the East. Like I said, they're healthy. They know who they are as a team. Not to say PSA North doesn't, but they're so much more consistent right now on both sides.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. I think the district comes down to them in Weslaco, and I don't think PSA North trips them up this week. One of the things that jumped out in your story is I think that the Weslaco East athletes on offense could pose a problem for PSA North, if I can talk. I think that was one of the things.
I was talking to Coach Pena for PSA North, and he was like, Cito Rojas, who is the leading scorer in this district with 13 touchdowns, he scored as a receiver, a runner, and a returner. He's like, he said he's one of the best athletes he's ever seen, and he doesn't know anyone on defense that can match up with him just in terms of athleticism.
Right.
And I mean, when he says that, it kind of concerns me because, like I said, there's been so many PSA North games that I've seen where I've seen stats where they just get gashed repeatedly. So if it's the first quarter and you already see Weslaco East tearing off these big 50-yard touchdown runs, these 6-yard touchdown runs, that's not going to bode well for PSA North. Granted, they've got athletes on offense too. They can score just as quickly as they give up points. I mean, this is a team with PSA North. They have they average about 420 yards in offense, but about 416 in defense. They have to score because they give up so many points. But like I said, last 3 games they've played better defensively. But like I said, with Weslaco East, they're so much more consistent. They know what their bread and butter is right now. And with PSA North, since Olivares has left, they're kind of riding the hot hand. And I don't know, with Weslaco East, their guys are their guys, So,
Right. So I just think, like I said, I think Westlake East is a cut above, and I don't dislike PSA North. I've been really impressed with how their offense has done without Olivares.
Right, me too, certainly. I voted
token,
PSA North in my top 10 this week. I put him number 10.
Even in a shootout scenario, I think Westlake East can get a stop or two, and that can keep them in front in this one.
Not to mention that, if PSA North wants to get in a throwing battle, Westlake East can throw too now. They've got Richard Lefevre.
It's your boy.
Yeah, Richard Lefevre is my boy. I mean, he threw for over 250 yards in a game against La Jolla earlier this year because La Jolla loaded the box, wanted Westlake East to run, and
to throw, right?
No, they loaded the box. They dared.
Right.
Loaded the box. They dared Westlake East to run, and Mike Burgett said "LOL" and put Lefevre out there to see Cedar Rojas for 250 yards. So, like I said, I'm just going Westlake East.
I like the idea of Coach Burgett saying "LOL." Yeah, let me think about that one for a while.
But like you said, it seems like we're not down on PSA North for the rest of the season. It just seems like this might be a bad matchup for them. But, Westlake East, if all goes according to plan, Westlake East versus Westlake, they're going to go into that game undefeated for the district title. That's going to be a hell of a fight.
Does Westlake have a game this week?
Yeah, they play PSA Memorial at Bobby Lackey Stadium.
That should be pretty easy, right?
Yeah, PSA Memorial, they're really looking for answers. They are officially out of the playoff race. They're 0-4 in district. They lost to Edinburgh High last week. Edinburgh High, that was their first win of the season. They lost 28-7. Losing to Econ to open the district season didn't help their playoff chances. They are hanging out by a thread as it is. And then losing to Edinburgh High. PSA Memorial just have to play spoiler at this point.
So now, having seen an Edinburgh High win, do you feel like they can beat Economy East this week? That's the other game that's in your district.
Can they? Sure. I mean, anything can happen any given night, right? Can they?
But
sure.
You're still confident.
I'm still taking Econ. This is a team that they've lost 2 straight.
They let me down.
They've lost 2 straight. Hey, man, they were a bit closer in that PSA North game than the stats would otherwise indicate. If they don't fumble the ball twice in the red zone, they'd really take control of that game early, and they might put PSA North away in that one. But who knows? Econ comes into this game losing 2 straight, and in those 2 losses, they turned the ball over 8 times. If they shore up and take care of the ball, and they just exert their physicality and their speed and their strength, they should wear down Edinburgh High, who, as we talked about before, they have a small team. They have a lot of guys that play both ways, and if you just wear those guys down enough, eventually things start working for you. So yeah, I'm taking Econ. And with Econ, they got 3 games left. They win 2 of those 3. They're in the playoffs. They got Edinburgh High, they got Westlake, and they got Edinburgh North.
Well, you're not winning the Westlake game.
Probably not. So
they're not winning the Westlake game.
No, they're not winning the Westlake game. So you got Edinburgh High, you got Edinburgh North. Edinburgh North's on a bye this week. They win their 2 games and they're in. They got PSA Memorial and Econ. So it looks like for the 4th seed, at least in this district, it's going to come down to Econ versus Edinburgh North, and that's the last week of the season. And I won't be able to be at that game because I'm probably going to be at Westlake East.
Right.
So,
as I keep saying, I hope they've been practicing their writing, the listeners. Because if you tweet in or whatever that you want to work for us the last week of the season, we're going to need your help.
Speaking of tweeting in, reminder or someone to those who might need a refresher, or to others that just don't know yet. Yesterday on the 5A show, Dennis Silva has an adoptive cat now. Not even adoptive, like he's taken in a stray cat. It's a little kitten. It is a gray tabby cat. And we are having a Name That Cat contest.
Hashtag
Name That Cat contest. So if you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag Name That Cat. And Dennis Silva, our 32 5A reporter, it's at DenSilva2. Send the name of the cat. If you want to name this cat, we're having a contest. Send your suggestion in. And if you win, Dennis has promised a prize. Now, Greg is looking on Twitter right now. Do we only have one submission?
Rio Grande City football people is the only one who wants to hashtag Name That Cat.
We have a Periscope comment from Jacob Rodriguez. He says, name it John.
Put it in the tweet.
I'd be flattered. Now, we should say that the gender of the cat is female, so maybe name it Joan in honor of me. I'd be flattered, by the way. I love cats.
Okay.
But Tabitha, I wonder if there's like anything...
Tabitha is the name to beat.
I wonder if there's anything personal to that. That's a pretty personal name, is it not? Or maybe this is a play on like Tabby Cat. Maybe it's just Tabitha with Tabby.
Bewitched, is that the cat from the...
Oh, hashtag Bewitched? Maybe it is the name from Bewitched.
I had a cat named Tabitha.
I mean, that's fine. It's a fine cat name. There's nothing wrong with it. But I want some more competition here. So please, on Twitter, if you're listening to this, or even on Facebook, comment, send us a message on Twitter, tweet at us, whatever. Hashtag Name That Cat at DenSilva2.
Name it Ravioli.
Or we can name it Ravioli. Oh, that's awesome.
Just send us a tweet. You're going to win, buddy.
Send us a tweet, please. I'm telling you, do it right now. Go on Twitter. at name that cat at Dan Silva 2 or at RGVSports.com. That could win. Oh man, ravioli! What a great name! That's such a great name. That's such a great name for a cat. Do it right now. We're watching it right now on Twitter. We want to see that pop up. Please do that.
Even like Ricky956, what you got for me?
I can't stress that enough.
Barbecue King, you want to name the cat? Like we're all our normal favorites. We love the Rattlers, but come on.
And we should say that I guess the polls close here at next week.
Yeah.
Next week they close. So
we'll plug it again on the recap show.
Yeah, we'll plug it again on the recap show.
Hashtag
Ravioli is great. Ravioli is a good one. That's really good. But it can't count unless you tweet. So please do it.
There you go.
Anything? Oh, we got to talk about 32-6A.
Well, the other thing is I skipped right to games. You didn't give me any kind of news and notes. If there's anything you want to hit on before we get into 32-6A.
I led my notebook this week. First of all, I wrote a feature on Economides. Player for them, an offensive lineman named Mario Ramirez. With Econ, they have a pretty, I don't want to say unique, because I'm sure there's a lot of schools down here that have this issue, but they serve a certain demographic within Edinburgh, where they have kids that live quite a ways away from their school. And Mr. Ramirez, he takes the bus an hour to school every day. He gets up at 5, goes to school, goes to football practice, and then after football practice, waits for the late bus, goes an hour, takes the hour-long ride home, does his homework by flashlight sometimes on his cell phone or what have you, and then when he gets home, it's straight to bed, and then it's up at 5 a.m. to do it all over again. Right. And he's not the only one. There's a lot of kids on that team that do that because that's just the demographic. And I was just trying to bring, shine a bit of light on the struggle that some of those teams have to go through. Because props to Econ, they're in the fight for the playoffs this year. It'll be their third time in 5 years. Props to Coach Payne and that staff. Before Coach Payne arrived there, Econ had never made the playoffs. They made it twice under his tenure. They're aiming for a third shot. So I just wanted to at least recognize and highlight some of the extracurricular activities and some of the burdens. Some of the burdens that Econ players have to put up. But like I said, Econ aren't the only ones that do it. But so I won't say unique, but just trying to highlight that that is something that athletes got to deal with, not just football but other sports as well.
It's definitely impressive. You forget that just in terms of schools and the demographic makeup, that there are haves and have-nots. We don't need to get into it, but certainly different teams have different advantages, and a lot of times you see that play out in the results. So it's cool when somebody can buck the trend a little bit.
Right. So props to that as well. In terms of general news and stuff, I talked to Edinburgh coach Escobar at Edinburgh High about the win. Just said this week was kind of not an easy week because they still have a game to get prepared for, but he seemed like kids had an extra pep in their step because they just came off that win. Like I said, if they didn't beat PHA Memorial, they were probably going to go 0-10. And every team, no matter how great the struggle, should experience the thrill of victory at least 1 week. So that was kind of my angle for that one. In terms of anything else, pretty quiet week. Teams are who they are at this point. As far as injuries go, nothing too catastrophic. Everyone's got their bumps and bruises, but it seems down the home stretch, just about everybody's got the horses that they want to try and make the chase here. So
okay, then let's talk 32-6A. Where do you want to start?
Well, real quick, before 32-6A, I never got your lock of the week. I need your lock of the week.
Oh, I'm going to take McAllen Memorial against McAllen High. This is a dumb pick. This is like I should pick McAllen Memorial any other week.
Like when I picked him over Juarez Lincoln.
I just want to be bold and point out just how much far ahead McAllen High is and McAllen Memorial is compared to everybody else by picking them against the second place team.
And do you want to know my lock of the week?
Of course.
I'm going to take the Mercedes Tigers, who host PSJA High. Mercedes, of course, had the big upset win over Ed Chelsea last week. 2 weeks ago, they almost pulled the upset over Donna. I really like the way this team is playing right now. I like their defense. I like the play of sophomore quarterback Zach Gomez. PSJ High, they've yet to win a game this season. Things aren't going the way they want to this season. I think the Tigers take care of business there at the new stadium they just got.
I know they got their emotional, high that they're coming off. Maybe they're sleeping a little bit.
They could. That could be a trap game. You never know.
They'd probably have to be sleeping quite a bit to lose this one, unfortunately.
Yes, well, let's move on to 32-6A here. What else? Again, we don't cover this district. That's all on the Brownsville side.
The best one, just glancing at it quickly, is the Thursday game, Harlingen High against Brownsville Vets.
That seems to be an interesting matchup. Harlingen coming off the big win over Los Fresnos last week. Brownsville Vets lost to San Benito. And the story with Brownsville Vets is, yes, they're undefeated, but this time last year, they lost 3 straight to playoff teams, San Benito, Harlingen, Los Fresnos. So it seems like everyone's giving Harlingen the benefit of the doubt, which...
And once again, that's what I would go with.
Yeah, that's what I would go with here. So... And Brownsville Vets, the story with them is Marcus Castillo, He came back from an injury against San Benito. Seemed like he played effectively, I guess, just based on the stats from what I saw in that game.
Not a great game from him.
Not a great game, so we don't know if he's still 100% or not. But I think regardless, we're both taking Harlingen in this one. So.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely.
Looking elsewhere, we got Hannah versus Harlingen South. That could possibly eliminate one of those teams from a playoff spot.
We were a little split on the picks in this one. I kind of like Hannah, though. I think that they can. That's who I went with. Who did you take in this one?
I think I took Hannah. This one. I really like Brownsville Hannah. And we've said this a bunch of times about them, though. You know, if they were in any other district besides 32-6A, they're probably a playoff team.
Right? Yeah, they sort of had a rough district draw.
Yeah, and same with Harlingen South. I feel like if they're in 31-5A or 36A, they're a playoff team too. They just they have to be in this brutal district where there's so many tough teams.
Right.
Looking elsewhere, we've got Los Fresnos plays Rivera. We all took Los Fresnos.
Yes.
Rivera has yet to win a game. Seems like that's one.
Super one.
That's one that Los Fresnos can get. Anything else? We got San
San
Benito and Lopez. I think San Benito gets that one as well.
One-sided. Okay, so not as many showdown games as the last couple of weeks have seen, but still that one that I'm going to have my eye on tomorrow.
Okay.
But I still feel decently confident in Harlingen in that one. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting. In terms of 4A schools and sub-5A schools, we mentioned them on yesterday's show. So.
Yeah, listen to that if you want that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like child's play.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Girls basketball practice started today.
Girls basketball practice started today. Greg, ask me how excited I am that girls basketball practice started today.
How excited are you that girls basketball?
I was so excited. I was so excited. I'm so happy that basketball season's back.
See, I knew I could bring this up. I get a little jolt out of John at 1:32 in the morning.
It is my favorite sport. Basketball is my favorite sport. I love covering it. Like with football, I like covering football, but I don't get the same kind of, just on a personal level, I don't get the same kind of joy that I do getting from basketball. Just talking to some of these coaches, I speak the language. All these kids are all familiar to me because this was the first beat that I had to cover last year.
Right.
I got here at the tail end of football season, didn't have my own district as a beat. So it's all these familiar faces, all these coaches, and all these kids that I'm used to seeing. I'm interested to see how some storylines are going to pan out. But yeah, I've got a girls basketball notebook out today on RGVSports.com. And on the monitor, I talked to Weslaco High, Mercedes High, and Edinburgh Valley.
Get excited. Periscope and podcast people.
And also in the swimming and diving front, teams are going to be at Brownsville for a meet there. It's not Gould in the Pool. Is it Gould? Is it Gould in the Pool? I forget what it's called. It's in Brownsville. It is in Brownsville though. So there is that. Cross country kids who qualified for regionals in Corpus Christi. Regionals are on Monday. We'll wish them good luck in their preparations for that. What's the news on the volleyball front,
sir? You can't
sir?
just drop a ghoul in the pool without warning me.
What's the news on the volleyball front, Greg?
Well, we talked about all year the McAllen schools battling it out for the top spot in that district, and it turns out that it's going to be Rowe who takes it because McAllen High beat McAllen Memorial on Tuesday, so now Rowe ends with one loss. I say ends because they only play the weaker teams in the district the rest of the way. Rowe is going to end the season with one loss. Memorial is going to end with 2 losses, and McAllen High is going to end with 3. So Rowe's going to take that district title and the one that was most competitive. A lot of the other races are still going to be interesting down the stretch. So keep it with RGVSports.com for the last 2 days, last 2 days, last week, however you want to call it, of volleyball coverage. I think there's some matches
then the
Saturday,
playoffs start.
Yeah.
And the playoffs start, and then once the playoffs are over, all those volleyball kids end up going to girls basketball.
Right.
So
we're just going to smoothly hand off.
I'm excited. I'm excited for girls basketball. Yeah, practice started today. The season starts November 10th. Boys practice starts next Wednesday, October 28th, i.e. my birthday. Ooh. And their season starts November 17th. They're a week after girls. So look for that. I'm excited, man. Hoop season's back. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, we made it.
We made it. We totally made it.
Is there going to be a basketball podcast?
Yeah, we've talked about it. We did a basketball podcast last year, albeit once district rolled around, but I'd like to do it even before district. I would like you to.
I'm sure the listeners.
I would like you to do hosting duties though, but that's all up to you.
You know what? Why not? Right?
Because like last year was just me and Mario. I'd like to have a third person kind of because I don't want to do host and talk about girls basketball.
Right.
Like I know with football I do hosting duties plus talk about stuff. Like I just have one district.
Well, I'm going to read all your stuff anyway, so I have plenty of things I can ask.
Cool.
About. Yeah.
Sure. I appreciate it. So yeah, we'll do it. Do it. Yeah. See, Jacob Rodriguez wants it.
Yeah, but he didn't even enter the Name That Cat contest yet. I'm watching Twitter. There's no more Name That Cat. But you know what? We can do that for him, I think.
All right, we'll figure it out. All right then, kids. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of the RGVSports.com podcast. We'll be back on Saturday. Once again, recapping the week that was. This is week 9. Only 3 weeks left, and then the playoffs begin. And then it's going to be Thanksgiving, and then it's going to be Christmas, and then it's going to be New Year's, and all that. And no, it's just crazy how time flies.
Right,
It's
really
crazy how time flies. We appreciate the time. Thank you so much for checking this out. We're on Facebook, RGVSports.com. We're on Twitter, at RGVSports. Greg, where can the good people find you if they want to follow along with Calvin Moore versus Matt Kai on Friday?
At Greg Luca.
And if you want to follow me along for Game of the Week tomorrow, I'm at John Fillet. What'd she order?
John Fillet.
And we'll be back on Saturday. Thanks, guys.
Periscope people.
Any post-show questions, comments, concerns about this?
Thank y'all for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. We did this really late. We've had really late starts this week.
Hashtag name that cat.
Hashtag name that cat.
That's one of the best things Dennis has come up with. And I really thought when I searched hashtag name that cat today, I thought there would be a decent amount of hashtag name that cat. Before Rio Grande City football, the last one was 55 days ago.
Interesting.
Nobody is using hashtag name that cat.
I like ravioli.
Ravioli's great. I might tweet in ravioli.